Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris, and you're watching The Future is Female. This is the show where we find the extraordinary in every woman. I am so delighted to introduce my guest today, the only Malaysian to have made history as a 5-time gold winner at the World Masters Swimming Championships. Cindy Ong is on the show today. Cindy, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure It's such a pleasure to have you on the show and appreciate your time. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to the show. I feel so honored.
Cindy, well, your accomplishments, you have such a long list of not just sporting accomplishments, but also, academic accomplishments and also your advocacy work. So I do want to kind of see whether we can touch on all of those in this conversation. I understand that you've been swimming practically your whole life now. I mean, you started as a child very young, and that the competitive swimming genes seem to run in the family. Your brother represented Malaysia, your aunt as well. Can we talk a little bit about going into this sport, swimming as competitive swimming, instead of swimming for pleasure or as a hobby? When did you realize that, you yourself wanted to do this as to make a living out of this, as opposed to, say, just being kind of doing it because the rest of the family also did it?
Okay. So first of all, thank you again for inviting me to the show. I actually came from a family of swimmers, as you've already introduced, and I guess there are about three parts to your question. And first, how I got in, and I think that the last part is, how do I want to make a living out of this, and the second part is the competitive aspect of it. So at the first part of how I got in, I was about 3 years old, and I was one of those who would hide behind my mom. I'm not sure if you have kids, but there are a lot of kids nowadays, and when they go for swimming classes, they'll hide behind their mom. They're scared. They don't want to go in. And I'm the youngest in the family. And being the youngest, you're the princess. I've got two older brothers. They are swimming already. And at that time, I was just kind of put into swimming. But I quickly picked it up, and I actually liked it at that time, and no pressure from my family at all. And I was just speaking to Trex FM this morning, actually, and I was just telling them the same thing. No, my family did not pressure me to train, to really take up the sport, but all they did was to introduce me to the sport, and just, I guess it's partly engineered, but it's engineered to a point where I made it internal motivation instead of everything external. So I stayed in the sport, and I was never really very competitive or very serious in the sport until the age of about 11 or 12. When I was 12, I started breaking record, and like national age group record. And what that meant at that time, I didn't understand it. My dad told me what it meant was that I was one of the fastest, or I was the fastest 12-year-old in the history of Malaysia. And
Amazing.
and so when I knew the extent of that, the how, like, wow, I'm the fastest 12-year-old in the history of Malaysia, with like 30 million people at the time, and the entire history of Malaysia, no one has ever been faster than me. I thought, wow, that's
Well,
really cool.
I'm sure you've been asked this question before, but sometimes when we do something so frequently, so often and often, sometimes competitively, we forget the joy of it. What do you love about the act of swimming?
Um, Actually, there's a lot of things. It's kind of like a love-hate relationship. If you ask a lot of swimmers, it's a love-hate relationship. Like, oh, they really dread training. But then you say, okay, then don't go training. They're like, no. So it's a really complex question that I think swimmers find it very difficult to explain. We love swimming. We love how tired we get after training. We love the competitiveness. If you're swimming next to me, yeah, we're racing. I just love the entire. I love how calm the water is, and once you jump in and you're training and you are in the zone, and nothing else. You can't hear anything else. It's just you yourself. I don't know. And it's a love hate, and it's very very tiring, very demanding. Got to wake up early in the morning, all the discipline.
Has that relationship sort of changed throughout your lifetime? I mean, has the relationship you've had with training and competitive swimming when you were, say, in your teens, is that different from in your 20s, your 30s? How has that changed?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, as a child, like a really young child under the age of 10, it's purely just parents. It's parents bringing me to the pool. It's them. They're like, okay, it's time for swimming class. So you go for swimming class. And so you just kind of like a sardine can, you're being put in there. And in my teens, I did it because I was top in the country and I had to do it. So I did it because it was more like a duty. I was in the national team, and I had to do it. It was what was expected of me. And then I felt that way all the way until I qualified for the Olympics, and I felt like I had to do it because I was under a full scholarship to the US, and so I did it. And so it was more hate than love, but still I wouldn't quit. And then I stopped swimming for about 10-year break. I took a hiatus, had 3 kids, gained ridiculous amount of weight, and then came back. I made a comeback because I gained tremendous amount of weight, and then it was more love. And
Well, well,
as of
that
right now, it's
yeah.
mostly love for the sport, and I am very passionate about it. I want to know everything about it, and the more I know about it, the less I know about it.
Oh wow. Okay, well we'll touch on that a little bit, but I want to talk about that comeback because that was an extraordinary comeback. You coming back after just having had your second child, I think, and then also swimming competitively while pregnant with your third. How, Cindy, can you explain to an outside observer how one can compete or in at that level of professional athletics while 8 months pregnant?
Okay. So I'm a person who likes to challenge conventions. I love challenging things that just somehow doesn't seem to make sense to me. I'll take in whatever information, I'll take in all input, and kind of put everything together and formulate my own, uh, if you want to put it, opinion or my own ideas on it.
Mm.
So I take the same in swimming. And so the entire comeback, well, first of all, I went back to swim because that's the only thing I could do and the only thing I knew. I was a swimmer. I can't run. I can't cycle. Uh, and if you point a gun at me and say, run for your life, I'll be like, just shoot. I can't run. So I was about 80 kilos. I was severely overweight after the birth of my second child. And I went back to swim trying to lose weight. One thing led to another. I started competing and started losing weight as a side effect of training. And so that's why the training continued throughout my third pregnancy, because I found out that I was pregnant as my weight was coming down. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I decided, okay, um, there's, it's either I stop swimming right now and put everything down the drain, or I challenge convention. I did a whole lot of reading up on exercising during pregnancy and everything surrounding that. The safety and how to do it, and the types of training, and just basically the whole umbrella. I studied religiously on how to do it safely, and I trained. I trained throughout pregnancy, and I competed throughout pregnancy, just as a normal person would. And I get asked the question a lot, like how would I advise other people if they're pregnant and on exercising? And I guess the answer is really on your lifestyle. So swimming has been a natural part of me all my life. To take it away is unnatural. So I to swim throughout pregnancy is natural for me. Not to swim would actually be unnatural. So it's that would be it. So if someone has been running all their life, don't stop. Why stop? You're pregnant. You're not okay. You.
maybe you can give us a sense of what that training is like. So what is it that you have to put your body and mind through when you are on track for training for a competition, for instance?
Um, what do you really
Yeah,
mean?
so maybe you can give us an example of what the training schedule is like. What is the, how grueling is it? Because it takes a long time to train for something, right? I mean, it's not like you can say I'm gonna swim competitively in a competition next month. It's months, even years of training to reach a certain level, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, coming from a competitive swimming background, making the comeback was actually extremely difficult. The first 2 months or so, every single session that I went back into the pool, I mean, I had to take some Panadol, ibuprofen because I felt like my body was so inflamed, and I constantly felt like I had a fever because my body was so inflamed from even an easy swim session. I would be so tired just after the warm up. I felt like I had a fever every single session. So I started researching on ways because I thought, look, I'm a mom and a wife, and I've got a job, and there's a whole lot of things. My plate is pretty full. I can't afford to train like how I used to train when I was a kid. We had the luxury of time and training 10 sessions a week, 11 sessions a week, 2, 3 hours per session. So that was what I had to go through as a kid, and that's why there's more hate than love back then. um, but then as an adult, sorry, coming back to swim, I felt like, okay, I really don't have the luxury of time. So I started reading up and studying religiously every night. I'll dedicate 2 hours before sleeping just to read up on the latest and greatest in the sports industry. What has changed in the last 10 years that I was not in the scene? Um, just reading everything and then dissecting it and formulating my own. So I've come up with a highly unconventional training method that is um, that doesn't require as many hours in a week. It's
Oh.
it's
Oh, this is really interesting. Cindy, I'm going to have to interrupt you there. We're going to go to an ad break, but let's come back and talk a little bit more about this highly interesting method that you've curated and developed. So stay tuned to The Future's Female. We're going to come back and continue this conversation with Cindy Ong. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to The Future's Female. I'm Melisa Idris, and I'm speaking to five-time world champion Cindy Ong, a competitive swimmer, of course, a former Malaysian national swimmer. She's also a vocal advocate for gender rights and equal rights, equality in the sport. We'll come to that in a little bit. But I want to go back to what she mentioned just before the break, which is this new method of training that she's developed that is based on science and her research and has been tailored to, fit more of her current lifestyle. Cindy, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So the conventional training entails, would include about 20 hours of training in a week. And what I did leading up to World Championship when I won 5 gold medals, I basically trained 5 hours a week.
Wow, compared to 20 in the conventional training schedule, how did you manage to cut that down without, say, compromising on practice and quality, yeah, on technique?
I was only training 5 times a week, and that's considered a lot. I'm actually only swimming twice a week now, and I know a lot of people who compete on the international level as a master swimmer. They're only training twice a week, and it's an hour. We go in, we get out. It's an hour because luxury time is luxury. Luxury is time.
So tell us more. What is the basis of this? Yeah.
Uh, the basis is efficiency. So basically, we get in and it's a very, very, very high intensity. When you're in it, you basically feel like you want to vomit and you want to get out immediately, because even 10 minutes of it will make a lot of people just want to give up. And how do I explain this? I'm not sure if I can explain it to a non-swimmer. I'm trying my
Okay.
best to
Yeah,
try to
please
put it
do. Mm.
I'm trying my best to put it into perspective for a non-swimmer. So it's like, um, I'll explain the principle. So traditional training method, you would be asked to swim miles and miles and miles and miles. For a 50-meter or 100-meter race, you'll be asked to train miles and miles and miles. So for example, if you are racing the 100-meter freestyle, you'll be given sets like 10 by 100 for stamina, or 10 by 200 for stamina. In my method, I hardly do anything over 25 meters. So 25 meters, just to give you a perspective, is half Olympic length, just
Okay.
half. So in my training, I'll only swim 25 meters, but those 25 meters are done at race pace, and I do a whole bunch of those 25 meters on
Oh, I see.
on a
So it's
target.
not about endurance, it's about hitting the speed and the mark every single time you swim.
Yes, in a controlled environment, based on an interval, based on a set tempo that it, so there's a certain, there's like four different variables that we play around with, and you keep improving those, and it's like a.
Well, okay, so as a non-swimmer, someone watching from the outside, as a layperson, Cindy, maybe you can explain it to me. I feel that swimming, competitive swimming, even things like track, is some of the hardest and most difficult sports, because it goes down to the millisecond. There's only so fast your body can move, can swim, can push against resistance of wind and water. How do you improve your personal best, for instance, or improve, a millisecond difference could be the difference between first and second place, and that at a certain point, you just can't progress any further, or is that a misconception on my part?
That would be a misconception.
Okay, all right. So tell me, how do you improve those millisecond improvements?
In swimming, how do you swim faster is always a question. How do you swim faster? There are two parts. First, you reduce drag, and second, you increase propulsion, or you can reverse it. You increase propulsion and you reduce drag. So there are two parts of it. So everything that we do in swimming, anything we do, and everything, it's all encompassing, is actually based on those two principles: reducing drag and increasing propulsion. So you can categorize whatever drills that you're doing, it all channels toward that. So if you're talking about improving that millisecond, I'm going to put it more, kind of bring it back more to reality here. So improving that millisecond, and you think that, okay, I'm maxed out already, I cannot anymore. There's always something you can do. So if you maintain your muscle mass, for example, and you lose, say, half a kilo, but you have to maintain your muscle mass, now your drag, you have efficiently reduced your drag.
Okay, okay. I love that. There's always something you can do.
Always. Okay, and then let's say your weight stays the same, but you increase your
Mm.
muscle, and then now you are stronger, and so you can move the water past you faster, or
Okay,
you
can
can.
I ask you, Cindy? Does it make a difference that you are a woman, and you've been through, all your different stages of life, swimming competitively, even through pregnancy? Has that informed the way you look at research and your training schedule and and perhaps even coaching? How does that change the perspective when you're kind of looking at a competitive swimming, like competitive swimming? Does that change because you are a woman, thinking about how your body as a woman responds, how your lifestyle as a woman needs to adapt to the training schedule?
I think that's a really good question. Um, as a woman and as a mother, uh, I think that has played a role. And having a son who's, I'm not afraid to say that he's quite difficult to coach. So having a son who's like that, who's quite difficult to coach, has made me a much better coach. Being a mother definitely helps. Looking at researchers, yes, I mean, naturally I will be reading articles on how to handle kids. It just outside of the swimming pool, how do you handle your own child, how do you bribe them? So that is definitely applicable in the world of swimming, and I think it's a great advantage to have being a woman.
Oh wow, brilliant! I'm really happy to hear that. Is the sport in your perspective becoming more equal? I mean, I know you're a very strong advocate for, you've spoken out against sexual harassment within the sport. You've spoken out against age discrimination in the sport. Have things improved? Are you seeing progress along the way?
I think that we are perhaps on a more equal footage on the top, on the very, very top level. So if you're looking at Olympic participation, so we may be getting more balance. But on the grassroots level, I still feel like there's a lot of work to be done, because a lot of parents feel that sports, it's more of a boy thing, and they'll put girls in like music and dance, and they'll put girls in more like dancing or singing class or drawing class, as opposed to, oh, let's put my girl in martial arts, let's put my girl in go-kart racing, or let's put my so I think that that's probably better now compared to the 70s and 80s, but it can be a lot better in terms of gender equality in the sport.
And on a more competitive level, is the development also, is there a gender bias with the development? I ask because sometimes the default setting is to think about what a male athlete or budding athlete would need, without, say, considering the specific needs of a young girl who's training to become a competitive athlete. How, I mean, has things changed? And you as a coach personally, are you thinking about making those changes as well?
I am an advocate. So for myself, even in my little team, I do have more boys than I do girls. So and that's not I think in every club or every little team that you have, you will see that you'll have more boys compared to girls. And so as a coach, I definitely want to see changes being made, and sometimes I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge thing, and sometimes the only thing we can do, I think, is just start with small steps. And you being very vocal and being very present and visible has also helped a lot of people, I think, come to terms with their own inequalities, discrimination that they have faced, but also realize that, oh, I see this aspirational woman that I would also like to embody and become, and this may be an avenue for me. Do want to ask you in the few minutes that we have left, I mean, what's in the future for you, Cindy? Are you training at the moment? Are you planning to focus more on coaching? Are you planning to swim competitively? What's in the near future?
Okay, that's a really interesting question, because I'm I'm very I have been planning on an NFT release for a while now. So I'm actually launching my own NFTs in the metaverse.
That's amazing. Wow, I would have never guessed that that would be in the plans, but tell me more.
So I'm launching my NFTs on the 20th of March. And parts of the proceeds, there will be six for auction, and parts of the proceeds actually going to Ukraine. And yeah, I'm helping. I'm apolitical in this matter. I don't want to say, I want to remain as neutral as possible. But what I do see is that people are suffering in Ukraine, and there's just a part of me that I have this soft heart that if I watch a sentimental movie, I'll start crying. If I've seen cats being run over and I see them die and I can't get that thought out of my head. So as a mother, and I see kids dying and I see people's homes destroyed, I see families being destroyed, and it's war-torn country. I don't care who is right and who is wrong, but the end result is that people are dying. So the war between Russia and Ukraine, it's like a bad divorce. They were once friends and now they're no longer friends, and the people are suffering. So I want to do something in my part, a small part, to just help the people. And so I'm going to launch my NFTs. Hopefully I get the support of people to go for this cause, to donate the parts of the proceeds. So that's in the very near future. In the longer run, I hope to secure a few more sponsors so I can compete internationally again.
Oh, brilliant. I wish you all the best, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. What a pleasure it's been chatting to you.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Okay, that was my conversation with a 5-time world champion, Cindy Ong, and that wraps up this episode of The Future's Female. I will be back with you same time next week. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.